In this webinar on Estonia, Denmark's relationship to Estonia. My name is Lykke Friis, Director of Think Tank EUROPA, but also co-chair of ECFR. And this is a cooperation between Think Tank EUROPA and ECFR, looking upon sort of the various alliances, the coalition game taking place within the European Union after Brexit. That puts pressure on a number of countries, Denmark, but also Estonia. And there we'll discuss basically how is the present relationship between Denmark and Estonia, how and where can it possibly be expanded. But as some of you will know, this is also a very special week because this is the week where we are celebrating 30th anniversary of the re-established diplomatic relations between Denmark and Estonia, and obviously also between Denmark and Latvia and Denmark and Lithuania. And as part of my preparation for this session, I reread the memoirs of Denmark's foreign minister at that time, Uffe Ellemann-Jensen. After the August coup against Mikhail Gorbachev, Ellemann-Jensen, he saw a window of opportunity for the three Baltics, and without consulting the European communities, NATO, or for that matter, the Danish parliament, he on August 23rd decided to re-establish diplomatic relations. The day after, during breakfast, the phone rang, and it was Germany's foreign minister Hans-Dietrich Genscher on the line. And now I'm quoting directly from Uffe Ellemann's memoirs. Uffe, my people tell me that you have established diplomatic relations with the Balts. Also when I introduce our second speaker. So Rafael, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Lykke, for having me and for introducing today's so pertinent topic for us. We at ECFR, at the European Council on Foreign Relations, conducted for the third time last year a pan-European survey of policymakers in all 27 member states of the Union. We collected the views of more than 800 experts in politics and in diplomatic realms from the academy and from media about questions of EU cooperation, where the member states see priorities, policy preferences, and so on. And based on this data, we constructed the third edition of the EU Coalition Explorer, which we realized as an interactive data tool on our website, ecfr.eu. And I will now share my screen with you so that you get an impression of what the data looks like and what it tells us about the Danish-Estonian relationship and where Denmark and Estonia sit in the context of the EU27. So if we look at the overall results from this expert survey, then we see that both Denmark and Estonia seem to be sort of middle powers in the EU context here. They're quite well recognized, especially when you consider their relative size in share population or in their contribution to EU27 GDP, for instance. We see that Estonia, compared to the other Baltic countries, is the top scorer here, ranks on 14th place overall. We also see that Denmark, which ranks on 12th place overall, scores least compared to the other Nordic countries that are a part of the club of 27. So Finland and Sweden seem to be doing somewhat better here. When we continue further to dive into some of the metrics that we've assessed, such as member states' preferences on who they tend to contact most, we see that votes from Estonian policy experts tend to be clustered around Latvia, Finland, Germany, and Lithuania. We also see that for the experts we interviewed from Denmark, the most contacted partners among the EU27 were Germany, Sweden, and the Netherlands. So while Denmark and Estonia show up on each other's radars respectively, they are not so much high on their list of respective priorities. Denmark looks at Germany, as I said, Sweden and the Netherlands, and Estonia mostly looks at its Baltic countries, the country neighbors. What we also see is that Estonia and Denmark share a characteristic in that they don't show up on their neighbors' priority list very highly. So if we look at, for instance, Sweden and where Swedish policy experts see priorities, then it is unfortunately not Denmark, but rather Finland and Germany, and the same is true for Latvia and Lithuania in their relationships with Estonia, unfortunately. Similarly, we see a pattern emerging here for the other questions that we asked. So, for instance, whether policy experts thought that their own country shared certain interests with other partners, whether they saw them as responsive or disappointing, or whether they were seen as particularly influential or punching above or below their weight relative to their size or contributions to GDP, for instance. So overall, we see that the Nordic countries share a very tight network. We also see that the Baltic countries share a very tight network. The second most important relationships are within the bloc of the Nordic-Baltic grouping of 6. And then these countries' relationship with other EU countries, Germany in particular, showing up quite highly here. When we look at policy priorities of Denmark and Estonia, respectively, turning first to Estonia in a second here, we see that Estonia particularly values digital policy, Russia policy, and fiscal policy, and is somewhat off from the EU27 priorities, which we see on the left-hand side, which, just as a reminder, represent fiscal policy, migration policy, and climate policy. So you see some difference there between Estonia and the EU27 average. When we turn to Denmark, we'll see that Denmark's policy priorities are somewhat more in line with the EU27 average. Denmark prioritizes climate policy, digital policy, and migration policy. Now, when you compare Denmark and Estonia, we see that for both countries, digital policy ranks quite highly. For climate policy also ranks somewhat highly. The other policy areas, for instance, Russia and fiscal policy, are somewhat further down the line. When we look at the partners that those two countries identify in their most prioritized policy areas, looking at Denmark and climate policy, for instance, we see that Danish diplomats and policymakers prefer Germany, the Netherlands, and Sweden in particular as partners. If we flip the coin, then we see that Denmark's leadership role on climate policy extends to the Nordic countries in particular and close neighbors, but not so much to the southern, western, and eastern parts of the European Union. Nevertheless, Denmark is seen widely as a climate leader. When we look at Estonia and its most important policy area, policy priority, namely digital policy, then we see that although there are relatively fewer respondents across Europe which see digital policy as a priority, we also see that Estonia shows up on their radar quite frequently, and not only in Estonia's immediate neighborhood, but also beyond that. And importantly, Estonia is seen as an important partner by the 5 countries that our survey shows seem to be the most powerful within the EU 27. So Germany, France, the Netherlands, Poland, and Sweden. Here I will stop and invite you all to search the EU Coalition Explorer, our interactive data tool, for yourselves on our website at ecfr.eu/EU Coalition Explorer, and look forward to Kristi's and Lykke's conversation.
Excellent. Thank you very much for a very precise presentation of the study. Gives us an excellent starting point for this conversation, because now we go from Berlin to Tallinn. It's a great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Kristi Raik, Director of the Estonian Foreign Policy Institute. You're also working with the University of Tartu, last time I checked at least. So you have many important roles within the Estonian debate. So thank you very much for spending the time with us here. Your institutes have also published a number of new reports. I've read a couple of them on the relationship between the Nordics and the Baltic countries. You've also looked into the whole question of what does Brexit mean for your region as such. So there are many issues that we are ready to discuss. But before we get to that, could you just take us back down the memory lane to August 91? And there also, what do you remember specifically about those days, and possibly also, who knows, the role of Denmark?
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Lykke, so much for organizing this, and to your institute. I'm also very happy to have ECFR on board. As you mentioned, Lykke, we have done some studies previously on the Nordic-Baltic countries in the EU, and we have had close cooperation with ECFR and making use of the Coalition Explorer. So I can only recommend on my behalf also, it's a very useful tool for looking at how countries can cooperate more effectively in the EU. And one finding that we can see there is the potential of the Nordic-Baltic group, which is a very important reference group for Estonia. But now looking back 30 years and even more than 30 years, yes, this has been quite a month of celebrations and people feeling nostalgic. I was a teenager myself at the time. And I have vivid memories of taking part in the singing revolution. It started with the first mass demonstrations in 1988, where we really had many times tens of thousands of people, even sometimes hundreds of thousands of people getting together and literally singing Estonia free. So it was really a formative experience, for my generation, that it was possible to have such a huge change, a very positive change for us, for our country. And we managed to seize this moment in history and to achieve something that just a bit earlier had seemed impossible. And this feeling of regaining freedom and opening up, it was just amazing. And being just a kind of grassroots level teenage participant in the events, I have to admit, at that time I was not particularly aware of the role of Denmark or other foreign countries, but of course I have been studying the process also later professionally, and it was so important in that process to have some very good friends in Western countries, and it was not an easy process at all to gain international support to the restoration of independence of the Baltics. But Uffe Ellemann-Jensen really was a very special person with a lot of courage and vision to see that this was the moment. And that support is very warmly remembered. And I've had the honor to meet him a couple of times later on. Most recently in June, when I was in Copenhagen and we celebrated the restoration of 30 years of restoration of diplomatic relations. And it was great to see several top Danish politicians and also the Crown Prince, the Foreign Minister, having very personal connections to the Baltic states and feeling it really as an important issue, and for Denmark also kind of strategically important issue that the Baltic states regained independence. So now we are together in the EU and NATO and having a discussion about how to cooperate in these frameworks. That's great.
But I presume it's a myth that small boys are still called Uffe in Estonia, isn't it? Or what's the situation?
I don't personally know any.
Ah, okay. But I mean, so there's something to build on. Definitely, we also heard that from Rafael. We also now with your sort of expose on the various sort of celebrations that we've just had. But before we get to where we actually are with our relationship, just tell us a few words, give us your sort of view on Estonia's sort of role in Europe after Brexit. How has Brexit affected Estonia? How has it affected the way you then also pursue your EU policy? Has it led to a change in the government with regards to being more active in finding new allies, or what's actually been sort of development in Estonia?
Well, obviously, Brexit was such a setback from Estonia's point of view. We really lost a very important partner in the EU because we had close positions with the UK on many, many issues. And I think really it's a similar situation as for Denmark. We had similar views on many foreign and security and defense policy issues in the EU context. We had similar views on the single market, on the importance of free trade, on fiscal policies. So it was a big loss, and it really made us think about how to adjust our approach to EU policymaking processes and how to kind of compensate that gap that the UK left. And one of the conclusions drawn was that obviously for everyone it became more important to invest in relations with Germany and France. That's, I think, what everyone is trying to do, of course, all the smaller member states. So there is a bit of a competition for the attention of Berlin and Paris. Estonia has pursued these relations very actively, and specifically with France. It's interesting, many people are not aware how close the defense cooperation Estonia has developed with France over the past few years. Estonia was among the first to join the European Intervention Initiative initiated by the French. Estonia has been participating in the Mali operation with the French, and it really has given some access. Not necessarily that the French would take on board our views. That's not so easy, and we see some issues, for example, regarding European strategic autonomy and European security, Russia relations, quite differently from the French. But we feel that we have a good connection. We have contacts. But then another very important conclusion is that we really need to look at the Nordic Baltic, or an extended kind of northern group of countries, which has similar views on many, many issues. And Rafael was pointing to some shared priorities already. So that's something to work on. And a kind of general rule in the EU is, of course, that you don't have any permanent coalitions. You are very flexible. You are open to look for friends depending on the issue at hand. And I think Estonia has been doing it rather successfully. We can see in the Coalition Explorer data, and relative to Estonia's size and resources, it has really been doing pretty good. And also being aware that you need to take your partner's interests very seriously. You need to be oriented to building consensus, reaching decisions. You have, of course, some interests that you want to defend in the EU context, but you can't do it in a rigid manner. And the Estonian experience of presidency of the EU Council was also a very successful one in that sense. I'm not just saying it because I'm Estonian, but we have actually done interviews and some research asking diplomats across Europe, and it was seen as a successful experience. But yeah, I mean, the Nordic-Baltic coalition or broader northern coalition in the EU, it's something where we really have to make full use of the potential that is there.
And just to remind everybody, you can obviously use the chat to ask questions. You can also use the raise hand function. I can see there's already one gentleman who's done that, but I'll just ask a couple of more questions and then I'll open it up. When Denmark, Sweden, and Finland joined the European Union, there was a big debate about the sort of the danger of being perceived as a bloc, the Nordic bloc. How was that actually in the Baltics, sort of when you joined, and has that discussion changed now with Brexit? Do you now see more internal cooperation with Latvia and Lithuania, or is that not something that is on your radar screen?
This is comparable to the experience in the Baltic states. That also in the Baltics, I think we are actually more similar even than the Nordic countries are as EU members. I mean, Nordic countries are really quite different in their EU policies. The Baltic states are very, very similar, but it's important for us not to be seen very strongly as a group. And it's a very small group anyway, so if we want to reach influence in the EU, we need to have other friends as well. It's not enough to speak out as just the three Baltics. Then again, the Nordic countries, from the Baltic perspective, from Estonia's perspective, it's a very kind of desirable group of reference, or it's something where we want to be. We even had this slogan at some point that Estonia wants to become a Nordic country. I don't think it's going to achieve quite that. We have seen that the Nordics are very keen to kind of maintain their own specific frameworks and their Nordic identity, and there are differences between the Nordics and Baltics. But the Nordic-Baltic cooperation and coordination, it works pretty good in not just the EU, but in a number of international frameworks. So from the Baltic states' viewpoint, I think we are more the kind of demandeurs to even strengthen further the Nordic-Baltic group. But again, I mean, when you talk to Estonian diplomats about coalitions in the EU, they always stress this openness to work with anybody. And for example, with Spain, we can have very similar views on the single market, and we work with them. So it's not that we limit ourselves to the Nordic-Baltic group.
And before I open it up, have you experienced sort of a change with regards to Denmark's sort of activism or Denmark's role in Estonia? I mean, judging from various reports I've read, maybe they are not correct, but one gets sort of the feeling that Sweden and Finland play a bigger role. Is that true? I know we also have the Danish ambassador in Tallinn on the line, and she's definitely very active, I can assure all of you. But I mean, have you seen in your various studies, has there been a shift in Danish EU policy with regards to the Baltic region? What does your study tell us there?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I fully agree. The Danish ambassador in Estonia is absolutely excellent and has done so much for the relationship and also for taking the initiative with this event. Actually, hello, Kristina, and thank you very much. But yes, I agree that in general, we tend to have much closer connections to both Finland and Sweden than to Denmark. And it goes both ways. I mean, we can't kind of blame one side in particular. And I think there is a sense that maybe for Denmark, the whole Nordic grouping is not as important as it is for Finland and Sweden. And when it comes to the Estonian-Danish relationship, we are so good friends. We have so similar positions on very many issues. It's a really very, very good relationship, but somehow it has a bit run out of steam when you look at how active it was in the past. So that's the feeling that I fully share. But I also see opportunities to especially in the post-Brexit context, to revive it. And it's great to see now with all the celebrations. I think we are again paying more attention to each other and looking for ways to restore cooperation. We saw in the ECFR data the areas where we could do more together. Of course, climate is the #1 priority for Denmark and for the Nordic countries. On this, I have to say, in Estonia, we still have some way to go, not just in terms of our policy in the EU, but as society also to move even more in the direction of seeing the green transition as an opportunity. And I think we have a lot to learn from the Danish experience and expertise in this field. So I see this as a very important area of future cooperation. And in addition, I would like to raise this whole broad discussion about European sovereignty and European strategic autonomy, where there are, again, many shared interests of Estonia and Denmark, or the Nordic and Baltic countries. Of course, Denmark has its opt-out in defense field, which kind of puts its constraints. But in a way that also brings us closer to each other, because for Estonia also the transatlantic relationship and NATO is really the main framework for collective defense in Europe, that where we want to strengthen defense efforts. And then we try to look pragmatically at what can be done in the EU framework to strengthen European ability to take care of European security. But we are quite pragmatic and a bit cautious on that. So we always have this priority on NATO. But then it's also positive to see this shift in the EU context, that the whole discussion on European sovereignty, it has become so much broader. And digital sovereignty is one issue that has become hugely important. And I think everyone knows how big priority it is for Estonia. There was this letter in spring by the leaders of 4 countries, Estonia, Denmark, together with Germany and Sweden, if I'm not mistaken, like arguing for digital sovereignty as a top priority in the EU. So there is a very concrete agenda there, and it's a very important priority for the EU as a whole. So that's part of the whole kind of sovereignty discussion. And of course, climate is also part of the European sovereignty debate, and the issues of technology, and becoming more important, more more sovereign also as an economic and trade power, which is a strong competence of the EU. But with the global context changing, we see some pressure towards more protectionist policies in Europe. But from the kind of Nordic-Baltic viewpoint, the emphasis is always on robust competition and free trade. And yes, we need to look very carefully at where our kind of strategic sectors of our economy, our technologies may be vulnerable to external influence, and we have to kind of work more on protecting these fields, but it should not take us in the direction of a more protectionist approach to the global economy. And the single market in particular is really hugely important for the Nordic and Baltic states. We need to deepen it further. We need to link the digitalization process to the deepening of the single market. So that's, again, a common agenda for us.
definitely. I mean, I think free trade is something that is extremely important, where there could be more cooperation. Also, the new industrial policy, a big debate takes place in the European Union at the moment. I'm sure we'll get back to that. But now I think I'll open for the two interventions. I think I have to stay in Tallinn, basically, and go to our ambassador. Kristina, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Lykke, and thank you so much, Kristi, for taking this initiative actually together and having this seminar. It's really great to see think tanks joining into the celebrations, and I think this is exactly what we wanted. We wanted to use the celebrations as a kind of a platform. We're happy to look back, but we're even happier to look forward and to cooperate more. I think you're right. We have been extremely close in the 90s. The democratization fund, etc., has brought us together with lots of Estonians traveling to Denmark, lots of Danes traveling to all the 3 Baltic states. Now, in between, as the years have gone, we have become like friends in the same way as many other EU countries are friends, and we regard Estonia as an EU country that kind of fends for itself. Then with the action sort of east of from our border here in Estonia with Russia, with the thunder on the eastern horizon. On defense, we have re-engaged a lot. We have 200 Danish soldiers here every other year. So on defense, we're already doing a lot, but we should do more on the EU, and we are so like-minded. I mean, if you look at the MFF, okay, we were not allies at that point, but that was natural. Apart from that, we are actually allies on all other topics going on in Brussels. So it's a question of reaching out to each other more. I had a chat with the ambassador in Brussels, the permanent representative, Jonas Bering-Lisberg, and he has confirmed to me also again here today by email. He wanted to participate, but he can't because he's part of an Afghanistan discussion right now. But he confirmed again, Estonia is a natural partner for Denmark on so many issues. We have excellent cooperation. There is one topic where we miss the Estonian voice a little bit, and I just wanted to mention that. It's not that we are not thinking the same, it's just that Denmark is a bit more loud. Estonia is not very vocal, and that's on the internal values of the European the European Union's values internally in relation to Poland, Hungary, etc. We miss you, Estonia. We would like to hear more from your side. And Kristi, if you can if you have time now or at a later occasion, explain to me why. I think I know some of the reasons, but it would be interesting to hear why is Estonia not louder, because you're so loud when it comes to human rights, freedom rights, etc. in the rest of the world. Then just one more point, energy is really, really big. In terms of green energy, we are cooperating a lot. You've only seen the beginning. We have the Danish Energy Board they have lots and lots of seminars with Estonia. They are going on every week at the moment, sharing our experience on green energy, on offshore, on offshore wind. There is a lot of cooperation going on that aspect, and I think you will also see that happening in Brussels. We will see each other fending for the same things. So on the digital agenda, of course, as well. But there we are maybe just working a little bit more in parallel. But on energy, we have experience, and Estonia is demanding it. So you will see more experience. You will see more cooperation happening. Thanks.
So more action coming up. But let's just take that question, extremely relevant. I mean, rule of law, there was the argument here that one could have a stronger Estonian voice. First of all, do you agree with that? Secondly, let's have the question the other way around, sort of where do you think that Estonians would like to have a stronger Danish voice? Over to you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for raising this issue of the rule of law. I was going to do it myself if you had not, and I do see it as one of the issues where we actually have a different approach when we compare the Nordic countries and the Baltics, and I have been pointing to it myself. and calling for a more active position of Estonia. So I fully agree that the Estonian voice could be heard more. What's positive is that the Estonian situation and the assessments that the Commission has been now doing on the rule of law situation, the situation in Estonia is very good. So we don't have problems ourselves. But then we have been very cautious to say anything much about Hungary or Poland. And of course, it's important to also stress that the two countries are quite different. And the reasons for Estonia being cautious are also a bit different in the two cases. With Poland, there is obviously the reason that Poland is just such an important ally for Estonia in terms of security, defense. We need to have a very close relationship with Poland, and that makes us kind of cautious to criticize the Poles. But that doesn't really apply in the same way to Hungary. Another kind of explanation is that the Baltics would favor maybe a more low-key approach. I mean, the Nordic countries have all been very vocal on the rule of law issue and very openly critical of Poland and Hungary. In the Baltics, you hear more often the view that, oh, perhaps we should not be so noisy and so emotional about it. Perhaps it's better to have a more kind of like judiciary focused and a more technocratic approach and investigate the shortcomings and look for ways to solve them. And there is a real kind of concern that if you kind of rock the boat too much, that can be counterproductive. I'm not convinced myself this is the right approach because the way I see it, you can't kind of solve a problem like this mainly by technocratic means. We need also clear political messages. And that is kind of part of the problem that not only from the Baltic states, but from many other countries, the political messages have not been clear enough, which then kind of creates this somewhat ambiguous situation. And then, of course, I have to mention also the domestic politics in Estonia as one part of the explanation. We had for about 2 years a government in power where one of the coalition parties was the radical right-wing party, the Estonian National Conservative Party. And they were really willing to take Estonia actually closer to Poland and Hungary. Now the government is no longer in power. I don't think they succeeded in taking us closer to Poland and Hungary. But that was the goal that they were very openly pursuing.
Thank you. That definitely was very clear to me, and also your stress on the geopolitical situation. You forgot the question about where you would like to have a stronger Danish voice, if possible, anywhere.
Yeah, that's not so easy to answer. Maybe I would look at the foreign and security policy files, where I talked already about kind of security and defense and the importance of the transatlantic alliance. And despite the kind of constraints that the Danish opt-out puts on Denmark, I think it's important to have a very clear view from the kind of transatlanticist members of the EU that the way we see the further development of stronger Europe. Of course, we also want to have stronger defense capabilities for Europeans and the stronger Europe able to take care of its interests and define its interests independently. But we always emphasize the indispensable role that the US plays in foreseeable future for our regional security. So the Danish position is very close to ours and it needs to be heard also in the EU. And then Russia policy, it's something that is a very high priority for Estonia in the EU context, to have a more united, more kind of clear-eyed approach to Russia. And there again, I don't think our views compared to Denmark are much different, but perhaps Denmark could be sometimes more active and speak out louder on this issue in the EU.
Thank you, and I guess I'm not revealing too much here by saying that there is also debate going on in Denmark on the opt-out on defense. At least today, there was a proposal by the now chairman of the Liberal Party, the son of Uffe Ellemann-Jensen, who said there should, at a certain stage, be a referendum on the defense opt-out. I'm not saying that that's around the corner, but I think Afghanistan, we should all watch that, is obviously also having an impact upon the Danish EU debate. At least that was the first sign that we've seen so far. Now I think we go to Gerald Christian Heinkes. The floor is yours, and please present yourself.
Yes, mange tak for at deltage i seminariet. And a little note on my background. So I was a student of Scandinavian languages, history, and the history of art. I'm working since more than 15 years on the issue of a European Association Statute, the new era, the European right to associate according to the Article 12 of the Charter of Fundamental Rights, working very closely with Sergei Lagodinsky, Vice Chair of the URI Committee in the European Parliament, who is elected rapporteur. And beside that, I'm working together with Roger Casale from New Europeans and Vice President of the European Civic Forum, and Dr. Louise Klein from the Hertie School of Governance. We are on the way to establish a kind of scientific platform, a virtual one. And beside that, I'm working since the 9th of May 2020 in the Working Group on Constitutional Question of Citizens Take Over Europe, where we are discussing the conference on the future of Europe. And this is also a topic which I would like to highlight. I have a big bundle of questions, but I try to focus. And
that sounds good, yeah.
Okay, and I'm also heading the task force where we are monitoring the citizens' entries on the platform of the Conference on the Future of Europe by analyzing, clustering, looking which of these proposals are maybe mandatorily would trigger treaty change according to Article 48. Sorry, and so that is my background. And as the questions with regard to, as I see Estonia as one of the core countries of the European Union, because belonging to the Eurozone, being very active, which I also would love to, that the Nordic countries are trying to be a little bit more bold on. The question with regard to the Conference on the Future of Europe, the strong ties you have with the Nordic Council, and there is not really a Nordic bloc pushing some specific Nordic ideas. We had this 12 member states letter before the Conference on the Future of Europe has started with the tenor. We really don't want to have a big treaty change, keep it as it is, make it a little bit smoother functioning, but no big discussions. So that is a little bit disappointing, because I am also the president of an association just established called Friends of the European Republic. Working a little bit together since me personally 15 years with Ulrike Gero, who is the founder of the European Democracy Lab and has written the fantastic book 2016, Why Does the European Union Has to Become a Republic? So,
what was the question?
The question is the focus on the Conference on the Future of Europe. Which connections do you use, and together with the Nordic countries, especially Denmark, but also the other European, the Nordic countries, to have a common approach to the Conference on the Future of Europe? What is your specific Estonian bullet point you want to have the Conference on the Future of Europe changing? That is one question. And
no, I think I got it, because we need to also to move on. But thank you very much. I think it's extremely relevant to raise the Conference of Europe, Future of Europe, because I mean that is an opportunity, obviously, to have a debate Also, you could say use that as a platform also for the Nordic and the Baltic countries. So, I mean, definitely. And one could also make the argument that now that we have elections taking place in Germany, and who knows, maybe also sort of coalition negotiations that will take some time. And then we have the French president election coming up. So one could argue a bit that it's home alone. So over to you, Kristi. What sort of opportunities do you see with the conference? And is there any debate at all on this conference in Estonia? Because frankly, in Denmark, it's very limited, I must say. Over to you.
Well, I'm afraid you don't find too many Estonians who are actually aware that the conference is taking place. And it's maybe slowly starting the discussion, but even among people who work on EU affairs, the approach has been rather, cautious, lukewarm. It's not very clear what is the purpose of the conference, as this letter of the 12 countries says. I mean, we see no scope for treaty change, and that should not be the objective. So, okay, let's try to use it as a process to strengthen the EU's legitimacy and, talk to citizens, engage citizens in discussions on the EU. That's always a challenge. Also in our work as a think tank, it's not easy to encourage a discussion on EU matters. Much more difficult than on many kind of foreign and security policy matters, because EU matters are more kind of somehow complex, often more technical. How do you speak in an exciting way about the recovery package or changing the fiscal rules and many other issues that are high on the agenda? And then again, there is this big process of integration that has been little by little moving forward, and we are kind of having a deeper integration, more closely integrated union step by step. And then sometimes you wonder if people are aware enough or engaged enough. So hopefully the process can be used to engage people, but looking at the political dynamics in many European countries, including Estonia, over the past years, we have to admit that somehow it has become a difficult argument to make that we need further deepening of integration. It has become a very controversial issue, and you find plenty of people who think that that's we've come to the end of that road, and that's not the way to move further. And that also, I think, it means that we have some very radical positions that have been harmful for having a kind of rational discussion on EU policies, because we have very strong views, like opposite views. Let me take just one very specific example. It's the question of using more qualified majority vote in foreign policy.
I have other people on the line, so
I'll just finish quickly.
No, sorry, we do have to continue the discussion specifically sort of on the areas where there are closer possibilities of cooperation between Denmark and Estonia, because I think you already mentioned free trade. You also mentioned sort of energy, obviously climate, or I think maybe the energy efficiency. If one looks upon the Fit for 55 package, I mean, energy efficiency could definitely be one of the areas. Now I'm also putting on my old hat as former Danish Minister on Climate and Energy. Digitalization was also an area that you mentioned. But what about sort of the future scope of, for instance, the recovery fund? I mean, huge sort of a discussion, I presume, will start to materialize after the German and the French election. Do we need a permanent recovery fund? There's also already a debate about a new possible sort of growth and stability pact. Where is sort of do you see that debate? Do you see common interest there between our two countries? Over to you. And then I have a question on the chat.
Yeah, well, related to the recovery package, I think we could see the Nordic Baltic countries again having quite similar views, and it was very much emphasized that this was a one-off decision. We didn't want to see it as a kind of Hamiltonian moment, and now the EU is becoming something different, and now we have a new step in integration. No, the narrative in our country was that, no, this is one-off. We are in a very exceptional crisis situation, so we need exceptional measures, and that's why we are supporting it. So when it comes to then possible future use of the same mechanism, we will have some very hot political discussions around it, and I think difficult to actually reach support to really changing the fiscal policies. But it's also something where I think we need a more informed debate about the possible ways ahead, and we know that after the German and French elections, it will possibly be a much more actively discussed issue in the EU. So it's better not just to say, no way, but to have a bit more detailed view on what are the opportunities there.
Exactly, that was my point about Home Alone, because now there is a time to prepare a debate or discussion, also to look into obviously the various sort of election programs of the various German parliaments. But I'm sure Rafael, if I wanted to ask you, you could say a few words about that, because there is obviously some important sort of issues being discussed if one looks upon the election sort of programs. But final question I have here in the room goes to you again, Kristi, on the overall question, where another area where Denmark has an opt-out, and that's obviously justice and home affairs. Do you see sort of, areas there where Estonia would like to see more action within the European Union? Here I'm obviously also thinking about the present situation that we see in Afghanistan. Do you have any debate about that, about sort of having maybe sort of taking refugees, or what we should call them, possibly also people just worked for the West, NATO and so forth, from Kabul to the European Union? We saw the Greens in Germany coming forward with the statement that one should have refugees coming from Kabul. We also have the situation in the UK coming out with 20,000 sort of as a proposal, also Canada. What's the situation with regards to the immigration policy in your country?
Yeah, well, that's another very controversial and politically hot issue. And not just because Afghanistan, of course, we have a lot of discussion on Afghanistan, but even before that, we've been having this crisis on the Belarusian-Lithuanian border, which is very close to us and has raised a lot of debate in Estonia and a lot of concern. And again, with the previous government, Estonia became very, very strictly opposed to any kind of further strengthening of EU migration policy, and was very strictly against any redistribution or taking in anybody through the EU system. But I really think we have to rethink this position and be aware that being a border country ourselves, we are also vulnerable. And we see it now with Lithuania, that Lithuania needs support. It's asking for support from EU member states, from NATO, to manage this situation of influx of illegal migration. And we know that it's something that could, in theory, happen to us. Not that we foresee it happening anytime soon, but it cannot be excluded. And suddenly this whole discussion about solidarity in the context of EU migration policy becomes in a very different framework, and becomes really more concerning us directly, and I think we need to take another look. And on Afghanistan, I think it's a similar situation as in many other European states, that there is really kind of fear that the 2015 situation would be repeated, and it's a very difficult issue, but most people have a strong sense that we need to help those who worked with us in Afghanistan, and Estonia also is taking to Estonia a number of Afghans who were helping us there.
Thank you very much, and thank you also for highlighting the situation, I mean, with Belarus and so forth. I think that was also extremely important. Rafael, you basically, you should have the opportunity just to give your sort of final sort of views, and now you've heard the conversation. Over to you, over to Berlin, and then I'll conclude.
Sure, thanks very much, Lykke and Kristi, for your remarks. I think in an effort to tie this discussion together a bit, we talked about a lot of issues that sort of are critical to the future of the European Union, to its member states, but also to the community as a whole. I think the European Commission in particular last summer and in the fall, assuming responsibility for vaccine procurement and distribution in the European Union, tried to create a positive narrative about European integration after the failures that we've seen last spring in terms of combating the spread of the virus through border closures and export controls that were implemented by various member states. And so the European Commission thought an opportunity to reshape the narrative and make it turn it into a productive European one. That didn't quite work out. There's been a lot of criticism as well on the vaccine distributions over the past year, and the Recovery Fund momentum that was generated last summer has also sort of fizzled out, but still it's the German election will play into this, and the French election will play into this as well, and this sort of window of opportunity that you've mentioned that these two elections create. The next couple of years will really be about rethinking and reshaping the narrative for European integration. And I think the European Green Deal and digitization represent two sides of the same coin in this regard, and Denmark and Estonia, because of their priorities and because of their recognized leadership in those two areas, could really team up and make a power couple, so to speak, on the green transformation and the digital transformation, and to move Europe forward as a whole.
What a nice way to end this talk. Another power couple has just sort of emerged in this kind of European integration, Estonia and Denmark. I think that sort of puts a lot of pressure on us to continue our cooperation. But Kristi, I mean, we will do that. And obviously, we will always phone up Kristina, our ambassador, to come forward with some new good ideas. I think the digital area is definitely one of them. I remember once the former Estonian president, Toomas Ilves, said that Estonia should aim to become another boring Nordic country. I just have to say, we are not boring at all. And although we are now more similar, you could say, I think that was also Kristina's point, one should definitely not forget each other. So I think this will be sort of what we'll continue sort of to use this sort of seminar as a launching pad for, not to forget each other, to remember to have each other on the radar screen. And I think there are plenty of opportunities to do that, in particular also with the conference Future of Europe, but also the home alone situation that we have with the German and Franco elections. So thank you very much for participating. We'll have a number of other events coming up. I remember one on the European Stability Pact, sort of Growth and Stability Pact will be one of them, but we're also looking into the overall question of Fit for 55. So plenty of opportunities there. So check our webpage. And I saw that Kristina, our ambassador, would like to see your slides, Rafael, but I'm sure that knowing you, you will share them with the rest of us in the overall sort of chat. So thank you very much. Thank you to Tallinn. Thank you to obviously also Copenhagen and all of those participating. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.